Good morning, Faith Church. This is Pastor Tom, and I wanted to give an illustration for our sermon this morning, which is actually Saturday afternoon. That's why I'm dressed like a slob. But I want to give an illustration of a story, but I'm afraid that if I tell it live, there's no way I can do it without crying. There's absolutely no way. So I'm going to try to make a video, and I'm going to try to do it without crying. And so we'll see how that goes. I believe the year was 2009. And so our family and I were on vacation at a place I referenced last week, I think. It's called South Haven. And it's right on the shores of Lake Michigan, southwest Michigan, right on Lake Michigan. It's just a beautiful setting, a great place to be. And so our family for many years went on vacation down to South Haven. And so this year was really a rarity. Lake Michigan that year was really warm. I think it was up to 75 degrees. I know, we think that's ridiculous down here when the water gets to be 86, 87 degrees in the summer. But it was August, end of August, and the water was super warm. And so we spent a lot of time in the water that year. I'm not a fan of cold water, but that's neither here nor there. And so our family was vacationing, and so my son Christian, who I'm going to tell the story about, he was 10 years old at the time. And so Christian and I were kind of the last ones down at the beach. Everyone else had gone up to the house, and we were at the beach, and we decided, it's going to go swimming one last time before we headed up. And so all that week, there's been all these people playing out on a sandbar. And so I know you know what a sandbar is, but anyways, the water kind of goes out, and then it gets deep, and then it gets shallow at the sandbar. And so, all the older kids were out there, and Christian had mentioned earlier, hey, let's go out to the sandbar. And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, so that time I said, it was my initiative. I said, hey, Christian, you want to go out to the sandbar? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go out to the sandbar. And so we started to head out into the water. And so everyone else was there, was gone, was not there. They had headed back. And there really wasn't that many people. It was kind of later in the afternoon. And so we started going out. And Christian is a shorter kid. So it got, over his head before I got over my head. And so it would get, we would go out for a while, and then it would gradually, get deeper. It went to, at least 10, 12 feet before it gradually went up and got more shallow. And so I knew that it was going to go over his head before it got over mine. And Christian was, a decent swimmer, and I'm really, I'm no Mark Spitz. I'm a decent swimmer also. And so, but I thought, it's not that far. We're going to be fine. If we get halfway out there and we decide we're going to turn around, we'll just come back, and it's no big deal. And so we got to the point where I couldn't touch anymore, because I was kind of holding on to him, so we didn't have to swim. And then we got out to the point where we're like, okay, we're going to have to swim for it now. And so we started swimming, and if you look at it and think about it, it just wasn't that far. It just didn't seem that far. But we got about halfway out, and I realized this is farther than I anticipated. And it was at the point where you kind of had to figure out, okay, do we expend all our energy and go back? Or are we beyond the point kind of no return? And so I felt like we were to the point of no return. So we had to go for it. And so I remember that Christian started getting a little scared, and I was really scared because panic kind of set in, because I knew, this could go sideways, and there's nobody out here. There's nobody at the sandbar. There's nobody we could yell for, really. There were some people, but I thought, we just got to make it. There's just no way. We're going to have to make it. And so, I started encouraging Christian and holding on to his hand. Is like, we can do it. We're almost there, and just hang in there. And it really got to the point where I was in dread mode. I was really scared, but I couldn't let him know that I was scared, because he didn't want to see his dad scared because then he would get more scared. And so it just took time, and we were swimming against the waves, and finally got to the point where I could touch the bottom, and I knew we're going to be okay. And so, I said, I can touch the bottom now, and I grabbed his hand, and we pulled him up, and we got up on the sandbar, and we had this, idea in our mind it was going to be great on the sandbar, but we were actually, the whole time we were out there, I don't know what he was thinking, but I know what I was thinking is, oh man, we got to swim back. How are we going to get back? And I kept looking on shore like for somebody with a boat or somebody to yell to, and I had to make that decision. Am I going to kind of call for help, or are we just going to make it? And so we were out there probably 10 or 15 minutes, and we got our energy back and said, okay, we got to get back. And so we felt like, okay, we got the waves with us now, and they weren't huge waves or big waves or anything like that. It was pretty still and calm. But I said, okay, we're gonna make it back. We're not gonna go out as hard. We're just gonna kind of dog paddle and just get our way, and we're gonna make it. Everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. And so going back was a little bit easier, just because I think that we kind of knew what stood in front of us, and we had a little bit of momentum behind us, and I just knew that God was kind of watching out for us. And we made it back to shore. We made it back to the sandbar, or we're back to the place that I could touch. And then it just, whoa, man. Now I'm gonna cry. But I went back, and nobody was around, and nobody felt for us. And I remember going back and telling Kim the story, and she wasn't there, so she didn't. I mean, she could see the fear in my eyes, but she didn't really know just how scared I was. And I was petrified, and I lived with that whole idea that I just put my son at risk for what? I put both our lives at risk for what? It's so dumb. And I want to beat myself up, and I had sleepless night after sleepless night. I would wake up in the middle of the night and just feel a sense of guilt. And I was a pastor. I mean, I should have known that, God forgives me, God loves me, but I just felt this sense of overwhelming fear and dread and guilt for what I had done. And so I'd never really told that story. I never told that story to anybody. Only Kim and I know that story. So now you know that story in Facebook world, or I don't know, it's going to be, I'll probably upload it to YouTube in order to put it at the church. But you can really feel a sense of overwhelming guilt for something. And the hardest person for you to forgive most of the time is yourself. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. So I made through it. I almost cried, but I guess I did a little bit. But thanks for paying attention.